家可以把经文打在我们的聊天框。
若雨，你有听到我的声音吗？
有
因为我的影像出不来，因为电脑
可
有问题。
是刚才可以啊。
对，OK，我就刚刚跳开啊，就跳出去了。
哎，可以看得到你，你再进来看一下。有
哎，
看到啦，
奇怪，哎，
看到
奇怪，
啦，
啊，
我看到
我自己
你的手。
看不到。对，我知道，我这怎么看不？等我一下。
嗯，
哎，好像有影像，怪怪的。跳开，刚刚跳开。
要不然你再出去再进来一次。
有，我刚刚就出去了。等一下，他说我的电脑好像有问题。
你可以了哈。OK。姨们，你已经带狗狗出去遛狗回来了吗？还是在路上
回来了。那我现在在用电脑，我
？OK
先用
OK
开电脑。
OK。啊，那宣荣呢？因为你看你已经2台了，是 ready 还是？
早安，早安。
早安早安。
等一下，我先关一下哦。
好，大家还是找一下，就是这一段时间感动的经文，或是今天早上有特别上帝给你的经文都可以哦，一样打在我们的聊天框。那今天我们就到7:15的时间来进行这一段经文的分享，因为今天的视频大概有40分钟的时间。我先放一点音乐啊，大家找一下经文。 7点15分，然后今天的视频大概有40分钟啊，谢谢大家给一点时间安静一下。维荣跟宣荣有找到了吗？还是还在预备中？
有，我正在写哦，马上。
OK。 好，那么我们就是一样啊，但就是今天的话，每个人有看已经7:11了，那就每个人好吧，还是一样，每个人2分钟的时间来分享一下，就这段经文给你带来的领受，或者是感动，或者是你有什么样的见证想说的。那我们从李欣老师先来。恭喜你搞定了，请开麦。
我还没搞定，我现在是用这个笔电，因为本来投射到荧幕，结果荧幕连不上去，所以现在开笔电。
好。
要分享经文吗？
对。
OK， 好，那我分享哈。我就蛮有感动的，就是因为我们每天都是在工作嘛，那我常常就会想到神的这句话，我们原是他的工作，在基督耶稣里造成的，我也要叫我们行善就是神所预备叫我们行的，我们是神的工作。那换句话说，神是陶匠，我们是陶土，那神陶塑我们，透过环境，然后来陶塑我们。所以说，我们原是他的工作。那我看那个译本也说，我们是神的杰作所以有时候，如果我们看自己好像不够好啦，或者是看自己做的怎么样，但是神每一次都会说甚好甚好嘛。所以呢，我们就是他的工作，也是他的杰作。所以那个自我形象啊，就不是用父母亲的角度在看我们，而是从神的角度在看。那这样子，有时候很多人会说做事好像会累啊，或疲惫啊，但是只要想到说，我们伟大奇妙神都还在工作，而且还做事，然后坐在我们身上，坐在我们的环境这样子，所以就会感觉到有盼望，然后有喜乐。重要的是神说我们甚好，然后就觉得感谢神。所以呢，我常常会用这句话鼓励自己，也鼓励就是我的个案，他们不是基督徒，但是我就会用神的话来鼓励他们，说我们是神的工作那神要我们做的就是我们去行善嘛，那是神预备叫我们行的，所以我们可能会遇到很多人事物是神为我们预备的，所以充满了信心跟盼望，感谢神。
好，感谢主。感谢主。今天早上我的那个每日一篇呢，也讲到行善这件事情，预备行各样的善事。好，来，接下来，你们，你们，
好，我今天分享的是在约翰福音15章26到27，但我要从父神那里才保惠师来，就是从父出来真理的灵，他来了就是要为我做见证，为耶稣做见证，你们也要做见证，因为你们从起头就与我同在。在几个关键字在我里面就是个真理的灵，然后起头就与我们同在。那真理的人就是耶稣，就是要见证耶稣基督，耶稣基督怎么为我们死，为我们而复活。所以每一天的更新是我很常常在里面是很深的需要学习去觉察的。旧事已过都变成这新，所以一些的框架，一些的枷锁，就一天一天神在他时间内就会释放，每天都会释放一点。所以真理的灵见证就是见证耶稣基督。所以耶稣基督就是当我真的我们就是都在罪跟义的一线之隔，所以我就每天藏在神的耶稣基督的里面，然后呢，在里面靠着圣灵去见证耶稣基督在我生命中一天的作为，还有一天的对我的恩典，对，然后要相信一件事情，父神他们是从起头就与我们同在的，就是随时随地都是同在，这件事情很重要，他在连你同在。以上这就是我最近的分享，这一阵子我很多的就有的一些的就是前面的道路越来越明了，就是一些的枷锁，可能以前认为的资源，就是我有一些资源一一的都从我生命中离开， 然后那我昨天特别清楚，这些枷锁离开之后是一个新的开始，那连我先生都有深的感受。昨天晚上就突然掉一个，那我从来没有碰过，很久没碰到的，那我发现哦，原来我这样子也是可以一边服侍，然后祭坛，然后做教练，然后还是有收入的。以上，谢谢。
阿门，感谢主。OK， 来，那我们就维荣。
我要分享的这个是我自己在最近我自己就是心情有一个状态，就是说在自己的工作一段时间了，很想看到成果。然后另外就是感情上也是觉得也是经营一段时间咯，然后觉得这个成果它到底是在哪里哈？那我觉得在这个经文当中凡投靠你的，愿他们喜乐，时常欢呼，因为你护庇他们；又愿爱你名的人都靠你欢心。那这个有一个很棒的神给我的这个提振精神哈，就是我有2次在在5月我有2次上清境，然后2次看到老鹰，然后1次是很远的看到老鹰在盘旋，然后1次有一只老鹰就直接在我车子前面，它这样滑行在我的车窗前面。然后在这个礼拜1的那个星期一俱乐部的那个暂停里面的音乐，当我闭起眼睛，我突然想起那2周那2次遇见老鹰的那个心境哈，然后我就觉得好像是神又带领我有一个力量，有一个高度，然后在我这地上我所做不到的哈，突然我觉得我是需要有神的力量带我能够看远一点。然后我们不是礼拜3又有那个 How far can I go 嘛，就是 John Maxwell 说我到底能走多远？然后我刚刚也想说 How high can I fly 所以我只觉得好像对着目标，对着没有结果的，有时候其实好像不是这么一回事我只觉得我需要去领受更大的，其实我也要给自己一些肯定，有一些事情已经成就，而不是一直在看见自己怎么还没达到。所以在这个过程，我觉得经文这诗篇它总是可以带给我，然后我刚说的就有这么多生活的场景交织在一起，觉得神就是要时刻让我们去投靠的，以至于投靠后有力量，可以欢呼喜乐。好，以上是我的分享。
谢谢维荣。How high can I fly？ 感谢主，来宣柔。
好，我的话，我的经文就是患难生忍耐，耐生老练，对，老练生盼望这一段。然后其实我觉得我现在目前是要学习忍耐的功夫，对，然后就是目前的状况，对，忍耐，没有什么其他的多的分享，
好，忍耐很不容易哦。
谢谢少宇。
对，因为我之前也曾经刻意操练忍耐这个果子因为仁爱、喜乐、和平、忍耐、恩慈、良善、信实、温柔、节制，每个月操练一个果子，然后还要有步骤的去操练，对不对很不容易，但是我觉得很开心，就是因为会有神的同在，这样子。OK， 感谢主。然后我今天选择的经文呢，是那个箴言21章，箴言21章那个1到3节的几段经文我呢，心在耶和华手中，好像拢过的水，随意流转。人所行的，在自己眼中都看为正，唯有耶和华衡量人心。行仁义公平，比献祭更蒙耶和华喜悦。然后我也加上那一段，就是我们在经营有道、理财有道都会谈到的一段经文，就是殷勤筹划的，足智丰裕，行事急躁的都必缺乏。然后我选的这段经文呢，刚刚好是我昨天晚上睡觉之前就是我的那个，就是在重听我的就是定期的那个经文的时候因为我都每日有那个读经的计划，是透过读那个我也读圣经，然后昨天也这段经文出来， 很重要的是这个段经文是我去年呢，因为跟我们的牧师就是回转，我当时呢就是回转说我需要回到教会跟牧者有更紧密的关系的时候，然后我的师母啊，我请我师母为我祷告，在最后的时候他就说了这一段话，就是王的心在耶和华手中，好像龙沟的水，随意流转，人所行的在自己眼中都看为正，唯有耶和华衡量人心。我觉得这段经文是更多的让我们去省察，就是自己是不是都看自己所做的事情好像都是正的，但是在神的眼中又是什么呢？我觉得要从神的角度再来看自己手中所做的事情啊，尤其是明天开始我们要进行那个6·1司董会，所以我就更多的要去看看上帝在这件事情要完成什么。对，虽然就是在做这件事情的时候有一个很大的仪式感，因为明天是6月11号，然后我们在天权6·11，然后6·1司董会，明天又是我的生日，所以本来这个时间应该不是明天开始的，是更早之前5月28号，但是上帝把它预备在这个时间，所以我就把它交给神。OK， 好，感谢主。然后有没有要那个互相彼此回应的？其实我是刚才对于就是李欣老师提到那个自我形象的部分，就是不再看，当我们自己自我形象低落的时候，其实我们很容易去贬低自己，然后看不起自己，而且没有内在的力量。可是当我们恢复自我形象的时候，其实是用神的眼光看自己的话，就带来能力。我要感谢神，就是因为认识上帝，恢复自我形象。好，如果没有的话，那我们就来看今天呢，因为今天的影片大概有40分钟的时间，所以大家预备一下纸笔。
Nick Groeschel is founder and senior pastor of Life Church, the largest attended church in North America, reaching over 100,000 people a week in multiple locations and globally online. Known for its missional approach utilizing the latest technology, Life Church is the creator of a YouVersion Bible app, downloaded in every country worldwide. Glassdoor named Groeschel one of the top 25 US CEOs for small and mid-sized companies. With a passion to help people reach their maximum leadership potential, he speaks frequently across the US and around the world and hosts the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast, named by Forbes as one of the top 10 inspiring podcasts for professionals with more than 1 million monthly downloads. A New York Times best-selling author, his latest book is Hope in the Dark. Please welcome Summit Champion, Craig Groeschel.
Do you think it would be a mistake for me to tell you that I'm a little bit nervous about doing this talk? Some people say, do you still get nervous? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes, I do. You'd think after all these years the nerves would go away. It is much better, honestly. In the early years when I first started to preach, my wife Amy will tell you, I used to get these big blotches on my face when I was delivering. That was the good news. The bad news is I was always vomit in a bucket right before going out to preach. I don't do that anymore. I've grown so much in my ability to communicate. Now I just throw up in my mouth, I swallow it, and we're good to go. It's clean, no problems, nobody gets hurt. I carry Tic Tacs, and we're ready. Do any of you recognize that speaking publicly can be intimidating? All of our sites, all of our sites, all of our sites. Here's a little trick for you I learned from my pastor. Whenever you forget what you're going to say next, you simply repeat the last thing that you said, and you walk slowly back to your notes. You just repeat the last thing that you said, and you walk slowly back to your notes. I am a bit nervous. The reason is because I really, really, really care about you. I want to do a good job. I want to help you grow in your leadership. And honestly, if I can be really transparent, I kind of want you to like me. I hate it when people hate me. It's no fun, and that's a little bit why I'm nervous. Is it a mistake for me to tell you that I'm a little bit nervous? Possibly, but probably not. What I could do, on the other hand, is fake it. And I could convey total confidence, impress you with my posture, oratory skills, breadth of expansive vocabulary, as I poetically explain to you how I systematically spearheaded a new category of ministry, piloted a world-changing venture, revitalized, modernized, optimized my organization to a paragon of innovative transformation. You might say, that guy's strong. I'm impressed. But there is a real problem. Impressing you is not the same as connecting with you. There's a big, big difference. As a leader, to really move you, to stir you, to inspire you, to stretch your faith to believe that you can do more and to make a bigger difference. I cannot just communicate to your head. I have to connect with your heart. And that's why I'm incredibly excited to talk to you about this talk. I call it Heart Over Head, the power of emotions in leadership. The power of emotions in leadership. Now, let me acknowledge what some of you might be thinking right now. Some of you are probably thinking, the best leaders don't let emotions interfere with business. You might be thinking, emotional leaders are weak leaders. Emotions get in the way of difficult decisions. I would submit to you that emotions are not only relevant and important, but emotions are the catalyst to change and growth. In fact, if you're taking notes, you may jot this down. The fastest way to change someone's mind is to connect with their heart. The fastest way to move someone in action is not just to speak to their head, but to move their heart with emotion. Now, here's what I know about all of you as leaders. If you step into a meeting, if you're going to do some type of presentation, in your mind, either intentionally or intuitively, you're going to want to communicate a couple of things. You're going to want to communicate information that leads to action. How many of you want action in your organizations? Raise your hand if you want some action. You intuitively or intentionally will try to communicate information that leads to action. You will think and you will do some form of this. You will think, here's what I want the people to know. That's information. And here's what I want people to do. That's the action. Know and do. Know and do. Before you lead the meeting, what do we want them to know and what do we want them to do? The problem is that knowledge alone rarely leads to action. I can prove it to you. You can know that you're 20 pounds overweight and all you do is eat another donut. You do nothing about it even though you know. You can know that sales are down in your organization by 4%, and yet no one's changing their behavior. You have a knowledge, but it hasn't led to action. You can know that your church ministry has declined for the 3rd year in a row, but you're not changing anything because, bless God, this is the way we did church in 1820, and we're going to do it the same way today. You can know it, but knowledge alone does not lead to action. The difference between knowledge and emotion is this. Knowledge leads to conclusions, while emotion leads to actions. So important. You walk into a meeting. you're gonna do a presentation. You're gonna try to get someone to buy your product. You're gonna try to get investors to invest in your organization. Instead of simply walking in saying, this is what I want you to know, and this is what I want you to do, you as a leader are gonna add an element that's gonna increase your effectiveness. You're gonna ask, what do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? Do not forget the emotion. The key to movement is in the emotion. What do I want them to know? You can know that you're 20 pounds overweight, but when you feel the reality that your health could be compromised if you don't make a change, when you do feel that reality, that will get you to move. If you know that sales are down 4% and you feel the impact on your bonus that you may not get, suddenly, baby, you're motivated to get the sales up. If your church has declined for the 3rd year and you recognize you might lose your pastor if you don't turn things around, or more importantly, people's eternal destination might be impacted, when you truly feel that, that might move you to have the courage not to change the message, but to change the method in how we actually try to reach people. What do we want them to know, feel, and do? So important in leadership. Knowledge leads to conclusions, while emotions lead to actions. So, as leaders, how do we create the emotion that moves people to action? How do we harness the power of emotions to motivate and inspire people to fulfill the mission? We're gonna look very practically at 3 things. And the great news is you can do this anywhere. You can do this in your 7th grade class if you're the leader of your 7th grade class. You can do this in your startup tech business. You can do this in your nonprofit. These 3 tools can help you move the needle emotionally in your leaders so you can accomplish more. How do we do it? Number 1, we're going to share stories purposefully. We're going to share stories purposefully. In fact, Jennifer Aker is the marketing professor at Stanford, and she did a little research. She asked all of her students to do a 1-minute pitch and studied the results. 1 in 10 of all of her students told a story. 1 in 10 told a story. Asked to recall the pitches, only 5% could recite some statistic that was said in that amount of time. But 63% could remember a story in great detail. Why? Because stories stick, but facts fade. Let me say it again. Stories stick, but facts fade. In fact, could I see these little props for just a moment to try to help illustrate this? Whenever you're talking to people, whenever you're casting vision, people are processing what you say with one of 2 different processors in their brain. For example, as I'm going through this talk, you will hear this in one of 2 different ways, and all day long, you've got one of 2 different processors that are working. There is, first of all, the emotional processor. The emotional processor is automatic and unconscious. You never have to get this one worked up. It gets worked up on its own. There's also the logical processor. The logical processor is controlled, it's conscious, it functions much, much slower. The logical processor, it takes more fuel, more focus. It gets easily depleted. That's why when you use this one at work all day long, it gets worn out, it gets tired, and when you come home, the emotional one says, let's get into a fight. This one's worn out, and this one's ready to get it going. The emotional processor, this one is the default. This one jumps up whenever we're not sure what to do. This one is never, ever rational. The logical processor, it compensates for the emotional one by rationalizing for the emotional side's irresponsibility. For example, if this one says, eat the whole thing, the logical side compensates by rationalizing and saying, well, you've worked really, really hard, and besides, you had a salad last Tuesday, you might as well enjoy it all. Why am I telling you all this? When you use a story, you connect the heart of the emotions to the strength of the logic, igniting a powerful action. Let me say it again. You're connecting to the emotional processor, you're leveraging the strength of the logical processor, and you're igniting movement that does create action. In fact, let me try to give you an example of this, and I want to be really, really clear. What I am not here to do is to try to push my spiritual beliefs on anybody, but I'm never, ever going to hide them. My goal is not to try to convert you to believe and be passionate about something that I'm passionate about. What I am going to do is I'm going to give you an illustration about something that I'm passionate about, because this will hopefully help you understand. Let me give you an example. First, I'm going to give you some statistics. Then I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to show you a story. Let's start with the statistics, and this is for an example. I don't know if you knew this, but there are about 1.5 billion people that don't have access to a Bible in their language. That's about 2,163 people groups who don't have a Bible they can read. I want you to know this is something that I really want to do. I really want to help people get the Bible. Are you with me? A couple of you are. Most of you probably aren't. I gave you some staggering statistics, but statistics don't create emotion. Let me tell you a story. Just that statement alone, if your mind was drifting, how much longer is this guy gonna go and when do we get out of here? Just that line alone, for some of you, brought you back into engagement because I said, let me tell you a story. And this is a very true story about me. Back when I went into college, I was really, really wild. Was anybody at any of our sites really, really wild in college days, about that age, okay? You could kind of joke around and say, like, if sinning was a major, I was majoring in sinning. I was wild, party guy. How many of you know that sinning can be fun? Everybody, everywhere we are, raise your hands up. Raise your hands up. Like, I'm not raising my hand. No, sinning can be fun. Listen to me. If you don't think sinning's fun, either you didn't do it right, or you're lying. I mean, it can be fun until it's not. Because it really will, like, it will hurt you and hurt others. It's a little bit like sneezing. You know, sneezing, it feels really good when it comes out, and then there's snot everywhere. That's kind of what it's like. It messes you up. And so I was, I don't know how to say this, I was building my testimony. And my sin caught up with me, and I hurt a lot of people. And I started feeling guilty and afraid and ashamed. And I was a part of a fraternity that got in trouble. There were 4 guys that committed grand larceny, and so they were going to kick our fraternity off campus. And I was the leader of the fraternity. None of us were spiritual in any means whatsoever. But I said, partially as a public relations move, partially because I was very spiritually curious, I said, we're going to start a Bible study. Now you can imagine, like, you know, Hellraiser frat boy saying to other wild frat boys, we're gonna start a Bible study. They're like, what the bleep are you saying, Groshell? We ain't doing bleep, bleep Bible study. And I'm like, no, I promise you we're gonna do it. And like, it's gonna be on Tuesday night, and you're gonna go, It's gonna be great. It's gonna be bleeping great, you know? And so Tuesday rolled around, and I was walking into one of my business classes, and I realized I didn't have a Bible. I'm gonna leave a Bible study, I don't have a Bible. So, I'm not gonna tell you that I prayed because I don't think I was that spiritual. I just kind of like thought in the direction of up. Like, I don't have a Bible. If there's anybody that cares, I don't have a Bible. I walked into my economics class. I walked out of my economics class. I was walking across the campus, and there was a gentleman in a suit and tie from an organization known as the Gideons who said, "Young man, would you like a free?" I sat down with 7 non-spiritual guys. I tried to sound pastoral. I had been to church. I knew somewhat pastors say. I said, turn to the first book in your Bible. They all turned to Genesis. I turned to Matthew. No wonder it's free. It's not all there. And so we just read the Bible, and then we try to pray with emphasis on try. We didn't know how to pray. We prayed like, this is truthful. Like, God, you know, like, watch over us as we party tonight, God. Keep us safe, oh God. And we pray, Mitch, his girlfriend's not pregnant, God. You know, we didn't know. I got so excited about what I was reading that I read ahead. I read all the way to Ephesians chapter 2, and I read in Ephesians chapter 2 a principle that I never, ever had comprehended before. I knew about Jesus. I knew the story, but I didn't know it personally. And I read in Scripture that you could be saved. In other words, you could be made right with God by the grace of God, not by works. And it's only through believing in Jesus that your sins could be forgiven and you would actually become new. So what I did without knowing anything was I went out into a softball field hating who I'd become, devastated by the people that I'd hurt, embarrassed by my sin. And when I knelt down that day, I was one person. And I'm not trying to push this on anybody, but I'm telling you, when I prayed and when I stood up, I was different. I was different. And there is a truth in here that changed my life. When I tell you that I'm passionate about getting this truth into the hands of people around the world that do not have access to this truth in their heart language, I would hope that there would be some of you who would believe this is important and join me on this venture. Statistic. story. And I might just show you, and maybe you'll feel, and what I want you to do is watch about a 37-second clip. I could show you longer, but it doesn't take long. And I want you to watch the emotion of the guy in the background who can't hold back the tears when he gets the Bible in his heart language for the very first time. Stories stick. And facts fade. No matter what you're leading, share stories purposefully. Help people engage in the mission behind what you do. This isn't just what we do, this is the why we do it. I think it was Simon Sinek said that people will work for a what, but they'll give their lives for a why. Create emotion. How do you do this as leaders? Share stories purposefully. The second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna choose words deliberately. Choose your words deliberately. Why? Because the words you choose determine the emotions that people feel. Let me say it again. The words that you choose determine the emotions that people feel. If you're describing something, you can say it was sad, or you can say it was heart-wrenching. You could say something hurts, or instead you could say it was agonizing. You might say it was amazing, which is a word that I overuse and it underdelivers. Or you could choose a stronger word to say it was remarkable, it was awe-inspiring, it was mind-blowing, it was epic. Choose your words deliberately. For example, how many of you in your organizations you would have like vision and or values? Raise up your hands, raise up your hand. Vision and values, I hope you do, I hope you do, I hope you do. Visions drives us. Values help create the culture. Let me help you understand some meaning behind the emotion of vision and values. Vision and values should never be words on a wall. They should be burned on our hearts. If your vision doesn't inspire you, if your values don't stir you or move you, they're too dull, they're too small, and they're too safe. I'll illustrate the power of words creating emotions around values. For example, our church has some values. I'll give you 5 of them. Are you ready to be inspired? We value reaching people. We value faith. We value generosity. We value empowering people. We value serving. Who wants to move and be a part of our great church? Probably, again, not many people. So what we did is we tried to put some emotion behind some words that would move people from ideas in their head to truths in their hearts that created action and life change by the way they would live. I'll illustrate it to you. Instead of saying we value reaching people, we say this, and we mean this. We'll do anything short of sin to reach people who don't know Christ. And to reach people no one's reaching, we'll have to do things no one's doing. A little bit of emotion, perhaps, if you have similar beliefs to me. Instead of saying we believe in faith, we say this. We are big thinking, bet the farm risk takers. We will never insult God with small thinking or safe living. Generosity, we will demonstrate it. You will see it. The YouVersion Bible app, it is free on almost 400 million devices. Anything and everything we can give away, we will give away. Why? Because we truly believe it is more blessed to give than to receive. We will lead the way with irrational generosity because we truly believe it honors God. Emotion, empowering people. We say this, we don't recruit volunteers. We release leaders because volunteers do good things, but leaders change the world. We value serving, but we say it this way. We aren't spiritual consumers, we are spiritual contributors because we do not believe the church exists for us, but we are the church and we exist for the world. What we want to do is we want to use the power of words to create emotion to move people to action. Here's what I don't want you to say about your organization. Well, we want people to really believe in our organization. No. Listen to the words. We want people to feel a deep dwelling, furnace raging, white hot inspiration, drawing them out of the mundane into a sacrificial life of mission. Mom, would you please clap? Get this crowd going. Mom, you can do it. Please clap, Mom. Don't just sit there. That's like really my mom, and she hadn't clapped yet today. Come on, Mom. Help me out. So again, back to the Bible. Back to the Bible. Something I really hope to do is to get the Bible into their hands. Those words don't create much emotion. Or I could say it this way, mark my words. In my lifetime, we will be the generation that eradicates Bible poverty. Joining with forces and strategic leaders from around the world, by the year 2033, 99.9996% of people will have a New Testament in their heart language, and they will have access to the same truth that changed my life. We want people to have a Bible. That's generic hope. Or we can make a prophetic promise. Carefully crafted statements that engage the heart and move people toward the mission. So what are we going to do, leaders? We're going to share stories purposefully. We're going to choose our words deliberately. And number 3, we're going to show vulnerability thoughtfully. We're going to show vulnerability thoughtfully. And the reason I say thoughtfully is because you can do it irresponsibly. How many of you know someone who's ever overshared? Raise your hands. Do not point at them right now. Don't elbow them. I'm trying to save your marriage right now as we speak. If you walk into the office on Monday morning and you decide you're going to be vulnerable and you say, you know what, I'm thinking about quitting. My depression medicine's not working and my hemorrhoids are flaring up. Listen, that's too much. Back off, hire a counselor. Do not do that to your staff. Show vulnerability thoughtfully. Is it a mistake for me to tell you that I'm a little bit nervous? Maybe, or maybe not. And the truth of the matter is, I was really nervous. And I'm a little nervous because what I'm about to tell you takes some emotional vulnerability. Is it a mistake? Maybe or maybe not. I would say probably not, and here's why. Because we may impress people with our strengths, but we connect through our weaknesses. We may impress people when we look strong, but we connect in moments of vulnerability. You know this is true. You know that lady in your office that you hate because she's so perfect? I just hate Miss Perfect. She just walks in here. She never ever has a bad hair day, and she walks in, she's just kind of perfect. And then she comes in and she has a real problem. You say, ooh, I like her. She's just like me. You connect through weakness. Think about the speakers that we've heard over the last couple of days. When the speakers are scripted with powerful, good content, you're engaged. But the moment they slow down and the moment they open up, you're engaged on a whole nother level. When they talk about their weaknesses, their own self-doubts, their own struggles, suddenly your heart bonds with them, and there's real power and real connection. Leaders, this is complicated, it feels risky, but it's so important. Show the people what's in your heart. Help them know who you are, what you value, where you're sometimes a little bit afraid, where you need help having faith. Lead with vision, lead with boldness, lead with vulnerability. We had so many people in our kind of leadership circle ask about how do we do this. I did create 2 particular podcasts on this very subject. I'll give you kind of a shameless plug, but episode 51 is called Keeping It Real. How do you keep it real in leadership? Episode 53 is called How to Be Real and Not Be Weird. Both of these talk about how to be real transparent. The way I end the podcast is always something like this. What I always say is, listen, leaders, don't feel pressure to know it all. You don't have to be perfect. People would rather follow a leader who's always real than one who's always right. Emotions will connect you with the hearts of your people, and you can lead them somewhere specifically. I want to close out with this. Our church is 23 years of age. Between years 11 and 13, I didn't know if I could continue as the pastor. Darkest, scariest, most vulnerable time of my life. Here's what had happened. We had been one of the churches that had pioneered kind of the multi-site movement, and we didn't have churches to learn from. We were on the front end of it. And we had outgrown our systems. We'd outgrown our ability to care for people. We'd outgrown our leadership pipeline. We were big, but we were weak and we were vulnerable. And I had some leaders that had been with me almost since the beginning. And these leaders didn't trust me the way they once had. And I didn't like them or believe in them the way that I once had. And we were at each other's throats, and it was ugly, and the whole organization could feel it. We would have behind closed doors talks where we'd raise our voices, we'd go home, we wouldn't talk for days at a time. I would say, we're gonna do this in staff, and then they'd come behind and say, yeah, Groeschel said that, but here's what we're gonna do. And then they would try to initiate something, and I'd come in and kind of blow it all up, and it was so ugly. And on the inside, I was more depressed than I ever know how to describe. Some of you may know exactly what I'm talking about because you were there at this very moment. And here's what I felt. I've lost the church that I loved. I don't have the ability to get it back. I'm not capable. I'm probably not the right person for this job anymore. I don't have the words to describe the desperation I felt in my soul. I want to quit. This is my life calling, and I'm not good enough. I went to a conference. I spoke right before Marcus Buckingham, who will be at the Global Leadership Summit in 2020, one of my heroes, one of the greatest teachers around. I put my head down in my seat afterwards and couldn't hold back the tears because I felt like the biggest hypocrite. Who in the world am I to tell anyone how to do anything when I can't even lead my church in the right direction? And I just sobbed and sobbed and shook and sobbed. And then in that lowest moment, I heard something that wasn't audible. Some of you will know what I'm talking about. It seemed like a voice that was almost louder than audible. And I just wrote down what I heard. Quit whining. You're sharp. Fix it. It was life. It was hope. I'm an old athlete. I love a good coach. Get up in your business. This was like my coach. It was like my dad. It was like my heavenly Father saying, quit whining. You're still the pastor. If I wanted someone else to be the pastor, they'd be the pastor. You're sharp. That was language that I needed. In other words, you're still capable. You still have gifts. You're still in the role that you're supposed to be. Fix it. You're the pastor. You're called. You're chosen. You step into it and do what only you can do. And suddenly, for the first time, I had faith. And I went back to my other leaders who are still with me to this day, all of my executive leaders for over 2 decades, still together. That is something that I celebrate and I honor in these great leaders. And I told them, I'm sorry. I've been dysfunctional. I've created a toxic culture. I've been wrong. You've been disrespectful. And I told them, not in a harsh way, I started this without you, and I can continue without you. I've named all of your replacements, and I can pull that trigger, or I can walk away. Neither plan seems good to me. We can all apologize. We can lock hands and be on the same side of the table. And if we can do this, we can lead this church out of this depression, and we can do something great. And I'm telling you, Bobby Grumall's here, and he was in that meeting. And in 30 minutes, we all changed. And we told the staff, and everybody sighed with relief. And what had been stuck and stagnant came back to life. What do I want you to know? Leader, pastor, mom, dad, what do I want you to know? You're capable. You're called. You're gifted. You are a masterpiece. What I want you to feel, inspired, driven, loved, celebrated. What I want you to do what leaders do. Step into your calling. Embrace your mission. If I could get at all of our locations, every leader just to stand to your feet, just every single leader around the world, would you stand to your feet? And I want to declare this over you. We started with this, and I want you to feel this. Leaders, like never before, our world needs strong, consistent, bold, courageous, integrity-infused leaders. Feel the power of the words. Feel the power. As leaders, we will lead with profound humility and furious resolve. We will cast a vision for a brighter future, and we will inspire others to do more than they thought possible. We will strive for excellence, giving our best and demanding the best. We will confront injustices and right wrongs. We will have the courage to stand up when others back down. As leaders, we will get better because everyone wins. Everyone wins. In every nation, in every city, in every village, everyone wins when the leader gets better.
好的，领袖成长，众人皆赢啊！好，我们给大家有看一下啊，有10分钟的时间吧。我想这一段让大家自己自我对话，把你不管是呢，你要写下来未来你想要分享的故事，还是呢你的价值宣言，你想要未来要去跟别人分享的。或者是这是第3个部分说，谨慎的是显露我们的弱点，有没有什么是你觉得你想要跟别人交心，然后在这一件事情上面你渴望跟他有更好的连结？我想可以从这3个部分大家自己写下来，然后因为我今天的时候到8点20就得需要跟大家说再见，所以大家如果要继续留在这个会议室的话，我就把空间留给大家可以到9点。然后我就把这个时间给大家有10分钟的时间 把刚才所听到的，然后跟自己有一些连结写下来。我想这是一个很棒的觉察跟反思的时刻。好，我把时间给大家。 好的，好，那请大家打开视频。有没有待会可以继续留下来的？待会可以继续留下来的有吗？因为我就可以把空间留给大家，可以继续分享。因为今天如果大家刚才写的东西有可以说出来的话，其实是对大家有帮助的。
我等一下会有课，所以我讲完就要先下线。对，我待会有文辅课。
OK， 好，那我们就先拍一张吧，然后做祷告就把时间交给大家自己回去了哈。OK， 好，那我们就拍一张，因为上帝今天把不管是我们所学习、所领受的，透过今天的领受呢，能够有行动哈。好，那我们就把行动交给上帝。然后一起再来一张，再来一张，一起把爱传出去啊！加油 ！OK， 好，那有没有伙伴今天的部分特别有想要回应一下的？我们就8:20结束。
我分享好了。我发现到我常常在分享我的软弱。我发现到，我常常在分享我的那个有限啊、软弱啊。我觉得这个地方是蛮好的，对。然后我就觉得，等我一下哦，等我一下，等我。
我先讲一下我今天准备要做的，就是要在刻意分享故事带学生的时候，这准备过程中，我要想带给学生什么感受，给别人什么感受，这是我今天要做的。以上，谢谢。
好，那维柔跟宣荣
今天就是让我又去回看自己的使命啊，觉得这个部分是真的是我们是蒙召的，然后在这一个部分可以更多的真诚坦率。我觉得这部分不管是有脆弱或者我们有什么卡点，可是我觉得就是去相信我们是可以把事情解决，我们是可以继续坐在自己该坐的那个位置上。我觉得今天是我一个很棒的领受。
好，谢谢维柔。好，来，好，李欣老师。
不好意思，我回来了，没有听到维柔的。就我发现到，就是刚刚他在提到说谨慎分享弱点的时候，我以前在分享，我感觉到我很软弱的时候，我以前在讲我很软弱，我还会觉得好像妥当不妥当这样子。好，那就是在分享那个软弱的时候，就会感觉到是还好我有神啊，如果没有神的时候，大概活不到现在，也走不到现在。所以我每次会感觉到，在分享软弱的时候，就是在感谢神啊，然后在为主做见证。好，那我刚刚听到他这几个重点，我都觉得蛮受到鼓励的。那我特别有感动的就是他讲那句话说，在脆弱中与人交心。这一点是我很阿们的。然后我就发现到一点，就是因为人都这样我觉得人都很软，我觉得啦，人都很软弱，然后也很真诚，也不需要去假装多那个，可能就是因为我经历过这样子，所以我觉得我今天非常的感动，对于这个讲员说带人带心这一块，我很感动，谢谢大家。另外有一件事情，本来我们要去玩，那因为212那个我先生刚好休3天，所以我就这一次 他希望我陪他，我就说好。那这一次我就不好意思，没办法跟大家去，赶快跟大家讲一声哈，谢谢。
好，宣荣。
我的部分，我其实也跟维荣就是有相同的感受，然后我觉得还有就是在用字的部分，我刚刚用字还蛮奇妙的，然后我刚刚就是在想说，我某一些东西为什么可能就是行动力不是那么的足够，然后还有就是我的宣言，我在想，就有一些东西我需要，把自己带动起来这样子。所以我刚刚就是在思考这方面的东西，在做一些修正。
好，谢谢宣柔。然后呢，我的部分的话，请大家为我祷告，因为我这个司董会的这件事情已经等了7年，或者说12年吧，12年，然后回来台湾到现在真的是满满的7年。然后其实是我觉得跟刚才的那段经文是有关系哈，因为我那时候听上帝的声音，听主为声，就是上帝跟我说回到教会，回到教会，回到教会。因为如果没有回到教会的话，我想今天这件事情也不会产生，所以等候7年，明天要开始，交给神吧。OK， 那我们请那个要不然以满来做个结束祷告。
感谢上帝，今天早上，借着圣灵丰丰富富的将你的道、真理的道交到我们的里面，主啊，也触动我们情感层面以及一些逻辑层面，主让我们在你的里面能有你的同在中好好的运用出来。主，谢谢你今天保守每一个人在里面，因为都与你同在，因为你从一开始就与我们每一个人同在。这样祷告，奉主耶稣基督得胜的名求，阿门。
阿门，阿门。好的，那我们就2个礼拜再见，拜拜。